Today I want to explore if Ducati really is so exclusionary, so singularly focused on performance, and if it really is the Ferrari of motorcycling. But there's a really important point I gotta make first. The most important thing about this video is that this V4R is a giveaway motorcycle along with $10,000 cash. We've never done anything like this, and actually this is the very last day you have to get entered to win this giveaway. Head over to yamanoob.co. Every dollar you spend will be 10x entries to win. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I have no idea if I'm going to do something like this again. This is the last day you have to get entered to win this bike. It was for 7 days only, so get your chances locked in and loaded. But let's talk about Ducati versus Ferrari. So let's start off by discussing the Ferrari, since it's the new kid on the block here on the channel, and it's some weird looking four-wheeled thing. This is how they define themselves online.
Born of the spirit of racing, a Ferrari epitomizes the power of a lifelong passion and the beauty of limitless human achievement, creating timeless icons for a changing world.
So they're all about racing on Sunday and selling on Monday to keep those efforts going. I've definitely heard of a few companies like that.
Ferrari also positions itself as Italian excellence that makes the world dream, highlighting the marque's Italian origin and its carefully managed unattainableness. The Ferrari brand stands for performance and sportiness at the product level and passion and exhilaration at the emotional level.
There's arguably no brand quite as exclusive as Ferrari. I mean, famously, Jay Leno doesn't even own one because their dealerships can be so tricky to deal with. You have to prove your loyalty. You have to establish yourself as a member of the Ferrari club. You have to own several models before they even let you buy a new one.
So, passion, Italian, exhilarating, sure, this is adding up, and hey, it's red too, with an ardent fan club with its own name, the Tifosi.
But what about Ducati? Well, they represent style, sophistication, and performance. They have an unmistakable, refined skill in building motorcycles that are committed to racing, and above all, they make some of the best-looking bikes on the planet.
Ducati was also born out of the racing paddock, even though it was founded by three brothers who wanted to make electrical components for radios. The idea of racing to sell bikes and then selling bikes to go racing started there. Ducati also mentions that the bond that's starting from the racetracks ties Ducatista the world over to the factory itself, overcomes all barriers, and is expressed by the Desmo owners' clubs. The DOCs are in fact like a clan linked by their allegiance to the Ducati flag. Ducatista meet up at racetracks and events and at World Ducati Week, and also on Ducati.com, which is visited by over 14 million fans each year.
Now, mercifully, unless you want some ultra limited edition Superleggera, you can probably go to your local Ducati dealership and walk out of there same day with a Ducati motorcycle. Ducati's fans, although loving red and being passionate and being super committed to the brand, it's not quite as exclusive as Ferrari. So they're both magnificent, interesting, exclusive, and red. Did I mention they're both Italian too? But what is the Ferrari like to drive versus a normal sports car? And is that experience commensurate when you consider a Ducati versus a normal sport bike? Well, let's find out. There's no denying it, when you sit inside a Ferrari, you feel special and different. I've driven a lot of different sports cars in my day, and Ferraris are just a little different. These supercars nowadays, they are not like anything else you've ever been in. First of all, the engine's behind you. You've got this crazy fast transmission. All the buttons and switches are a little bit different than what you'd encounter on a normal vehicle. And overall, the fit and finish in here just feels absolutely otherworldly. But is that experience the same in the Ducati? Now, on the other hand, in stark contrast, the Ducati V4 feels kind of normal. I know that's kind of crazy to say, but I'm sitting atop this motorcycle. I'm seeing mechanically adjustable suspension, a twist throttle, a brake lever where I expect, an engine where I expect on a motorcycle, and a frame that, yes, it handles really, really well, but kind of resembles a normal motorcycle, and there's some sophisticated electronics, but I would say the Ducati V4R gives me maybe 10 to 20% more intrigue than an R1 or S1000RR, despite costing twice as much money. Now, speaking of price and performance, let's benchmark a Ferrari against normal sports cars, and then we'll do the same for the Ducati as well.
So, cars are obviously quite different to motorcycles. Not only the whole extra two wheels thing, but the car market is quite different to the motorcycle market. Cars are status symbols, and they are reflecting our incredibly uneven world in terms of wealth inequality. But cars are also utilitarian objects that we as Americans need in order to function in society. So, since everyone has to have one, it's natural to try to differentiate yourself, to peacock a little bit, if you will.
So it seems every year these luxury, unattainable brands come up with zanier and crazier concoctions to try to sell to idiots with more money than sense. You've got off-road sports car Lamborghinis, 2,000 horsepower hybrid electric things, hell, even an EV Hummer. Where does the madness end? But this F8 Tributo isn't quite like that. If you can believe it, this is actually considered an entry to mid-level Ferrari. Crazy, I know.
When you compare the F8 to a normal sports car, well, there is no comparison. For the sake of argument, let's use a new 2024 Toyota GR Supra as your quote-unquote normal sports car. Let's assume you don't take a ridiculous dealer markup and you can purchase this vehicle for around $50,000. Not too shabby. You get a 6-speed manual transmission, a turbo 6-cylinder engine making 382 horsepower and achieving 60 miles per hour in 3.9 seconds. By all accounts, those are extremely respectable figures. Now let's crank this up and show what you get with an F8 Tributo.
First of all, you gotta know a guy, kill a guy, or have owned several Ferraris to even get your grubby little hands on one of these. You're also gonna have to bring $350,000 to the table to buy one. That's 7 times the cost of the Supra we just mentioned. But for that money, you are getting twice the horsepower, a mid-engined car, a lightning-fast transmission, and looks that could excite even the most tepid of librarians. But the craziest part is, this is the entry-level option from a few years ago. This is the mid-engined, kind of middle-of-the-road Ferrari. This isn't even the spiciest one that they make. But more on that in a bit. The chasm between a Ferrari and a normal sports car is immense. But what about motorcycling? Are Ducatis 7 times as expensive as normal sports bikes, and what exactly do they offer?
So what will take the mantle for our quote-unquote normal sport bike for today's video? Well, let's select the humble Suzuki GSX-R 600. It's difficult to select a more middle-of-the-road sport bike than a Japanese 600. Amazingly, Suzuki still sells the GSX-R 600 brand new on showroom floors. You'd be a fool to purchase one with 0 miles, but if you're looking at a brand new Suzuki, intellect was likely never your strongest suit in the first place.
Suzuki's GSX-R 600 is going to set you back $11,499 on showroom floors. Now, this motorcycle is making 125 horsepower, does 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds, provided you're a capable enough rider. And it doesn't have any sophisticated features or electronics, but it does have a great frame and an engine with a lot of get up and go.
The Ducati V4R is an entirely different story. This is arguably Ducati's flagship model, a limited edition production that's meant to satisfy racing constraints. The MSRP of a new Ducati V4R is right around $45,000. That's over 4 times the price of the Suzuki. It makes damn near double the horsepower too, at 240 horsepower with the special Shell oil, race exhaust, and map. It has every form of rider control, traction control, and electronics you could dream up. It is an apex predator motorcycle with 0 concessions made. It is absolutely not even close to an entry-level model from Ducati. The wildest part about all of this is that with a talented rider around a racetrack, you could easily keep up with a guy on a V4R if you were on a 600. Hell, even on a 400 you could do it, because bikes are about skills, and I'll explain more of this later.
So the Ferrari comparisons start to fall apart a little bit, but speaking of entry-level models, what the hell does Ferrari even sell anyways?
The F8 Tributo was Ferrari's last mid-engined entry-level V8 sports car. They replaced it with some V6 hybrid turbo abomination recently. I don't know, cars are weird. As such, the F8 sat somewhere on the bottom of the totem pole and maybe a little bit further up, depending on who you ask and how connected you are to the Pebble Beach crowd. Ferrari mainly sells exotic sports cars, and that's about it. Recently, they caused a big uproar by selling their first SUV, hot on the heels of Lamborghini selling their Urus no less, which is pretty much just a reskinned Audi product. Ferrari's is the Puro Sangue, which is Italian for pure blood. Right, sure.
Then from there on out, according to their own website, they just make other crazy, unattainable sports cars that no one can buy because they can't afford them or they don't know a guy.
The cheapest, newish, low-mileage Ferrari that I could find online was a Ferrari Roma going for $284,895. That's about 4.7 times an average person's annual wage.
Ducati, on the other hand, is quite different. They don't just make singular, crazy sport bikes that only 1%ers or wealthy people can afford. It's an aspirational brand, sure, but consider something like the Ducati Scrambler. Yes, it's still a Ducati, don't at me, it says it right there on the bike and on the badging. You can pick them up for as little as $8,195. And if you want to get a real Ducati, I found something like a Ducati Monster for as low as $9,000 brand new. This is something that's pretty reasonably affordable for most people.
Ducati makes Scramblers, Multistradas, Panigales, Monsters, Hypermotards, and even e-bikes. Are they a full-line manufacturer like Honda? No. They deal in more specific things, but the lineup is so much more varied, and the entry point is as easy as walking into your dealership and finding a model that you like. When you consider this, Ducati starts to look downright reasonable.
I think it's reasonable to say that the purchase of a Ducati is possible by someone with a regular wage. I think your Joe Schmo out there could save, dream, and achieve the purchase of a Ducati motorcycle. Yes, it's a tad bit aspirational, but I do think it can be done.
But I think we can all agree that a Ferrari is not attainable by a normal person. There is no world in which a regular Joe Schmo, after saving up some scratch, can walk into a Ferrari dealership and sign some papers for a brand new Ferrari Roma or a 296 GTB or whatever other silly special edition models they're trying to peddle to billionaires.
An important point I wanted to make is that the products you see on dealership floors like this Ducati V4R are so much closer to their real race bike counterparts that you see on track being used by professionals in World Superbike and in MotoGP. Meanwhile, the F8 Tributo really is just a vanity exercise so that Ferrari can keep selling these things so they can go lose in the F1 championship. This car is nothing like the things you see in World Endurance or hell, even F1 for that matter. This is not really anything derived from a race product.
A Ducati V4R, however, is an actual race bike. It was built to literally go racing. MotoGP riders often train with bone stock V4Rs with slick tires. Do you think F1 drivers train with an F8 Tributo on slicks? No. Do you think they grab even the most expensive Ferrari they sell to train with? No. Because these things aren't race cars, they're status symbols. They're meant to be displayed, traded, and flaunted. They're not really meant to be enjoyed and driven, in my opinion, and most of them barely see any miles. Hell, even the Japanese manufacturers are like this too. World Superbike riders train with stock Yamaha R1Ms with slick tires, and they can do amazing things with those bone stock machines. With motorcycles, it's all about the rider. With cars, not so much.
Bikes are about skill, passion, and bleeding-edge, naturally aspirated performance, while high-spec cars have become largely status symbols for 1%ers, and they've been transformed into these things that are big, heavy, bloated, boring, and a little numb to operate. Bikes are still accessible. Even at the upper echelon of performance, motorcycles mimic and feel like real race bikes more than any production car could ever dream of. Bikes are more raw, animalistic, direct, and they just simply require way more skill to operate. Owning something like this Ducati Panigale V4R and having the courage to take it on track and to learn and improve, well, I just think that's something entirely different and more respectable than signing a check for a Ferrari.
So, Is Ducati the Ferrari of motorcycles? Not at all. Ducati makes a full line of bikes that are around 10 to 20% more expensive than their competitors, even the Japanese ones. They don't just make silly, ultra-expensive toys for rich people. Ducati is a passion-based company, sure, that's been growing its customer base over the years. You can buy something as simple as a Scrambler all the way up to a $100,000 Superleggera if you choose. Meanwhile, at Ferrari, you better know a guy and have $250K ready to go if you even want to sniff at an entry-level model brand new from a dealership, let alone purchasing something higher up on the totem pole. Despite both brands being red, iconic, Italian, and focused on racing since the start, I don't think Ducati is the Ferrari of motorcycling. If anything, I applaud Ducati for making inroads to the more common consumer and offering excellence for the other ones who want it. If anything, Ducati is more like Porsche. They sell big volumes of practical, everyday motorcycles so that they can support their insane racing efforts and limited edition craziness. For all those multistradas and monsters sold, you know money's being pumped right back into R&D for their MotoGP programs and the Panigale lineup to keep kicking ass in racing. Much like Porsche expanded their lineup years ago to start moving huge numbers of Cayennes, Panameras, Macans, and much more so that they can create zany GT cars like my personal holy grail car, the 997 Porsche GT3, which evidently continues to get more and more out of reach as time goes on for me. Alas, I'll have to make do with the tiny model I've had on my desk since I was 17.
So yes, if Ducati only made Panigales and crazy limited edition sport bikes, then we could say that they're like Ferrari, but I can actually think of an Italian marquee that more closely resembles Ferrari, and that's MV Agusta. I mean, think about it. What other brand in the motorcycling world is more close to Ferrari than MV Agusta? There are no compromises. Ultra limited edition sport bikes, super exclusive, they've been bankrupt all the time, and they always want to go racing.
Here's my take on this whole thing. Ducati used to be the Ferrari of motorcycling. No compromises, sport bikes, passionate, racing, Italian, and nearly bankrupt all the time. Ever since it was snapped up in 2012 by the Audi group, Ducati's ethos has totally changed. It is much more broad appealing, has expanded considerably with their model lineup, and guess what? It's more successful than ever, both in sales and on track, with a double World Superbike and MotoGP Championship victory in 2022.
As a big fan of what Ducati does, I can tell you they are not the Ferrari of motorcycling. If anything, Ducati is the Porsche of motorcycling, and you can take that for what you will. I can tell you right now, this V4R is more exhilarating to ride both on street and on track than this Ferrari could ever hope to be. Save yourself $300,000, get some skills, ride a bike, be a Chad. And don't forget, this is a giveaway V4R. If you want to see this thing in your driveway or in your garage, head over to yammynoob.co and get yourself 10x entries. Today is the last day you have to get entered to win. Make sure you got those chances locked and loaded, because this is one of the craziest things I've ever done. I don't know if I'm going to do it again because I have no idea if this is going to work. You're not going to want to miss this one. You literally cannot afford to miss this giveaway. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later. Brother, I was just like you once before. I remember I was a squid. I was doing terrible things on the street, but then I found Yammy Noob, and I kept watching Yammy Noob, and that made me feel better. And when I got better, I stopped doing terrible things on my H2 back here. So I implore you, keep watching Yammy Noob. Click subscribe. Watch the next video. I'm trying another